G'day everybody and welcome to this week's episode with Simon Dell, who is the founder and CEO of Cemoh, which is a place that you go to when you're a business owner and you're trying to look for marketing help. You don't really know what you need, but you need someone to help, or you have a very specific need and you're looking for a specific kind of marketing resource. The reason I invited Simon in today is he's been in marketing for 20 years. He's built and sold his own agency. He's built this marketplace. He's mentored lots of founders. So he's got a lot of ideas and a lot of perspective, particularly in the small to mid-market space, which a lot of our audience run businesses that are in that space, in that kind of 1 to 20 mil revenue range. And so he doesn't come with a lot of fluff and like, here's an example from Apple and here's an example from Microsoft, where when you're thinking about best practice examples, sometimes people give you examples of really huge companies who've got massive budgets and massive marketing teams. What I like about this is he also gives you some really down-to-earth examples of marketing that seems to be really working. And I think some excellent tips. If you listen right to the very end, he uses his sort of 5 key takeaways for founders, and one of those will really surprise you, I think. So make sure you listen all the way to the end. I think you really enjoy this episode if you're thinking about how you can better optimize the marketing in your business. I think they're quite simple learnings, no silver bullets, but actually will really help you reflect on whether your marketing is lined up for maximum success over the next 3 years. Enjoy listening today.
Welcome to the ScaleUps Podcast, where each week you get to hear Sean Steele, professional CEO, growth mentor, and advisory board chair, unpack the strategies that successful founders have used to achieve scale in their businesses. Stay tuned as he interviews the entrepreneurs who've made it, learns from industry experts, and follows a group of founders still striving to scale.
G'day everyone and welcome to the ScaleUps Podcast, where we help first-time founders learn the secrets of scaling so they can fulfill the potential of their businesses, make bigger decisions with greater confidence, and maximize the impact they can have in the world. I am your host, Sean Steele, and my guest today is Simon Dell, CEO and founder of Cemoh. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it.
That is correct. Yes,
good.
Absolutely.
Glad I didn't screw that up in the first 5 seconds of our conversation today. And that is fundamentally a marketplace where businesses are finding and hiring marketing experts and marketing talent are finding their next opportunities. How are you today, mate? Are you well?
I'm good. Yes, I'm very good. Close to the weekend. So yes, it's good.
Almost there. Well, look, just, I guess, a bit of insight into your background at a high level, and please feel free to correct me or if I've missed anything. But I mean, you've had a pretty long history in marketing, probably almost 20 years since you kicked off as a marketing manager with Lion Nathan, which is showing your age just quietly. That means you and I are probably quite a similar age. You've launched and sold your own agency. You've worked with clients all shapes and sizes across all key industry types. And you've also mentored a lot of business owners through some of the Queensland mentoring programs I know you've been involved in. You've done lots of speaking. And then in the middle of COVID, you launched this Cemoh marketplace thing right in the center of the pandemic. And then on the side, you're also a published author of both science fiction and kids books. Well, I'm exhausted just talking about what it is that you've been up to. Did I miss anything that you think is key for people?
No, that's pretty much it. And in amongst all of that, I try and find. I've got 2 young boys as well who are 6 and 6.5 and 4. So yes, spend my time.
My wife and I were just talking about the fact that we were quite. Now that we're getting to our sort of mid to late 40s. We're quite fortunate that we actually started very early. So ours are right on the tail end. One leaves sort of home next year and the other one's not too far away and about to go to boarding school. So
yeah, I started very late. So that's, they're catching up with me now. So yeah.
Indeed. Yeah. Keep you busy. Well, look, I guess context for our conversation today, I really wanted to bring you in because the reality is that founders, particularly in that kind of 1 mil to 20 mil revenue category, which is typical of our audience, the vast majority have not grown up in marketing. Very few of them have secured any senior marketing talent. They're often just figuring out on their own. Maybe they've used some agencies along the way. Maybe they've hired a permanent junior or 2 or 3 or 4, but they often don't have like a fractional CMO type role around in terms of that kind of maybe not grey hair, but the kind of wisdom in the room to help them on the strategic side. And so what I really wanted to unpack a bit of today with you for our listeners' benefit was some of the stuff that you see people struggling with that prevents them from fulfilling the potential of their business, because you're going to have a really different set of optics to a lot of other people. Some of the characteristics are of good marketing strategy. What are some Australian examples? People often, when they talk about marketing, and great marketing or great marketing strategy, give huge US companies as examples, and that's all great. But when you're a business running a sub 20 mil, services business like Australia, it's like, yeah, that I just can't do anything with that. Like they've got 100 people or 200 people in their marketing department. I've got no one trying to figure it out for myself. And then, I guess practically, if you were going to, share a few nuggets of wisdom around 4 or 5 things that founders could do that would materially improve the way they market themselves, what those things would be. That's really where I'd like to go. Anything else that you want to cover today?
No, that sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Awesome. Well, so then why don't we kick straight in? What are some of the biggest issues you see founders struggling with from a marketing perspective that you think prevent them from fulfilling the potential of their businesses?
I think I wrote down 3 sort of bullet points here. I think the first one is there's always this constant confusion as to what's working in marketing. There's famous quotes about 50% of my work marketing is working, 50% is not, but I just don't know which 50%, and it's still true today. And all this attribution stuff and all of these things that you can do online, and and unless you're in a really clean kind of e-commerce business where you can go, hey, this click did this.
Yeah.
Certainly service-based businesses, it's very, very hard to tell where your customer came from, unless they specifically say so and so referred you to me. So that's a huge challenge. And even in the e-commerce businesses, it's hard now because of privacy laws and changes in privacy laws, privacy terms and conditions with Apple iPhones and other all those kind of bits and pieces. It's really, really hard to understand that when I put $1 into marketing, actually what that is doing.
Yeah.
And the frustration you find with a lot of businesses is they go, look, all of our business is word of mouth. And they'll sit there and go, why should I spend money on this when I'm getting referrals from all my customers? Or worse still, they've already spent money on something, and they're sitting there going, well, my last 10 customers, 8 of them came from referrals from word of mouth. So why bother spending money out there? So that's a big challenge, is understanding where your leads are coming from, understanding where your new business is coming from. That's still a problem. And certainly for the size of businesses that you're talking about, if you're a $100 million business, or you've probably got an army of people that are working it out for you. But a lot of SMEs just don't have that. I think the second thing is cost. Marketing has this.
But actually, sorry, and just on that,
go for
it. One of the things that I notice is I see most founders usually successfully get to somewhere between about 5 and 10 mil without maybe any great marketing. If they've got a good product, a good service that's kind of hitting a need, they're great at what they do, they can usually get to about that stage. But are they going to get to 20 to 50 without then actually good marketing strategy, more sophistication, real money going into it? Probably not. Like your ability to continue to scale becomes a lot harder.
Absolutely. I've seen a $40 million electrical company who've never had a marketer for 15 years. Grown from being built out of personal relationships and things like that. $40 million they were turning over, and never had anyone doing any marketing. We were the first people to go in there.
Actually, I bought a business doing $35 million about 5 years ago, and there wasn't a single KPI for new business anywhere in the business. Every salesperson was an account manager, and I was like, this was all existing client revenue. Just do a great job, get the next thing, expand the account, keep moving.
And the challenge when you've got with people like that is they go, well, why would I employ anyone doing marketing? I'm turning over 40 million. And often I would turn around to them and say, well, can you imagine how much more you'd have been turning over if you did have someone doing some marketing?
Yeah.
What sort of size your business and scale your business could have been at if you'd actually looked at that properly.
Yeah.
And I think the thing for me is those businesses that are turning over 40 million and don't have anyone doing their marketing, they're balancing on a precipice every single day. Is that if you don't have someone doing that, there are so many ways that you can lose that market share, and you're completely, indefensible. You can't fight back when you don't have, a brand that people recognize, or or you're not in constant communication with your customers. It's very easy for someone to walk in, potentially undercut your pricing, take your business away, and then you wake up 2 weeks later and go, hold on, what the fuck happened there? And that's those are the sort of things. So sometimes marketing doesn't necessarily need to be this proactive growth strategy. It can be actually a defense strategy. There's a great story I tell once of a smash repair business. And he said to me, I sat with him and he goes, he had this smash and repair. I think it was in Nunda in Brisbane, somewhere like that. And he said, why would I spend money on marketing? So I get all my jobs from, all the insurance companies. And he said, they just keep me nice and busy. And I said, do you not get any business from, drive pasts of, customers? He goes, I don't need any. I've got all this other business. And he was on a main road, and next to him were lots of other empty warehouses. The kind of smash repair, they're just empty warehouses.
Mm.
And I said to him, what happens if another smash repair business opens next to you? And he looked at me and go, well, what do you mean? I said, just another one, just like someone comes in there and buys that tenancy, moves in there, does a smash repair business there, and starts going after the same insurance work that you're going after. And you could almost watch the light bulb go on in his head. He's going, shit, yeah. It was so to me, for him, it was like, we don't necessarily might not need the marketing to grow, but you do need it to defend yourself against potential competitors. So
I saw this with a client recently. Obviously, there was a lot of businesses that had tailwinds coming out of COVID, and particularly anybody who had anything in digital or anyone who was in and around people or talent, things like that. And some of them have just been so busy keeping up for the last 2 years that they haven't given a second thought to marketing. But then, of course, you get to the point where, okay, maybe a slightly recessionary environment, business confidence goes down, all of a sudden people stop spending. And the ones who haven't been doing any marketing, been doing no business development, all of a sudden can get caught with their pants down. And other people who've been doing it all of a sudden just carry on. It's never an easy balance. And sorry, mate, what was your second one there?
Second one was cost. Everyone goes, hey, word of mouth is free. I'm getting clients free of charge. So why am I going to start spending money on marketing when, I just, and again, word of mouth is never free. It's, there's the perception that it's free because you haven't actually outlaid any cash, but there's time and effort and all these other kind of things that you spend to generate word of mouth marketing, but it's not free. And I think that I saw this, I shared this on LinkedIn yesterday. I can't remember who said it, but someone was talking about how with marketing, it's, you turn around to someone and say, hey, it's going to cost you $25 a click or $20 a click or $25, especially service-based businesses. If you're in law and accountants, it's costing you a fortune in Google, right? It's going to cost you this amount for a click in Google AdWords, whereas it might cost you $20 to send a potential client a 6-pack of beer. What do? I mean, you go, I'm going to send people a 6-pack of beer. Why would I not go and buy 100 6-pack of beer and send them to 100 potential target clients? Instead of pouring money into Google.
Which one's going to be memorable?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I raised the point that what if your client's a recovering alcoholic? It's probably not a great thing to send them. But then someone said, well, send them something else. Send them bubble tea or kombucha or whatever it is. Just send them, that kind of thing where you there's a gesture in there that says, hey, we're targeting you. We want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Here's a 6-pack of beer.
And also, what you get in the mail is
totally
so boring. I mean, you hardly get any mail. You certainly don't get any personal mail. Whatever comes through your letterbox, it's just awful. It's just, it's bills or the ones you haven't turned back to digital yet. And there's nothing interesting. So actually the people that come through, I've still got 2 coffee cards. When I first moved up to the Sunshine Coast, I must have just gone through an open house, and one of the real estate agents has kept me on their database, sends me a sort of Christmas card every year, but handwritten, really nice, more than just 2 words, and includes 2 coffee vouchers at one of the local coffee places. And that person has stayed in my mind for all of those 2 years, just because they're actually using my mailbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those kind of little things are effective. Yes, they cost money, and they cost time and organization. And the key thing is with things like that, it's not just about sending someone a 6-pack of beer. It's about sending them a 6-pack of beer and then giving them a phone call. It's about that multi-touch strategy, and just being being gentle in your approach, rather than trying, hey, can I come in and try and sell you something?
Yeah.
So those were two. I mean, and the third one, I think, is just the challenge with marketing is constantly changing. It's just goalposts keep moving. There's new things happening. There's new pieces of software. There's someone telling you this. There's TikTok. There's Twitter. There's everything happening out there in the world. There's so many things that you could be doing. It's just this constant change. And for anyone that runs Facebook ads, you can guarantee that every week you log in, the interface will have changed. Something would have been added and something would have been removed. And, and yes, if you're a business owner, you're not the one that's supposed to be doing that, but then you need someone there that's doing that for you. So just those are sort of the kind of three things that I see a lot of, and that sort of
and
that makes
how do
people
you
wary of
advise?
marketing.
And how do you advise people when, they start to get swept into that, with that kind of FOMO, feel like we've got to be on, everyone's on TikTok, we must have to get on TikTok, we've got to be running Facebook ads, everyone runs Facebook ads. So how do you try to guide people to start in, maybe get a bit bamboozled or feeling a bit overwhelmed by the amount of change that happens in the channel opportunities?
I mean, I have a very structured approach, whether you're a service-based business turning over $1 million or whether you're another business turning over $20 million. Marketing by is not really that complicated. If you follow a particular structure, you can be quite successful. To me, the message is always, let's get the basics right first. Let's not start mucking about with VR and TikToks unless we can actually do the very basics right. Like, do you have a CRM with all your customers' details in it? No. Well, why are you mucking around trying to build something in the metaverse when you can't even get that right? So there's some basics that everyone should be doing well. And often, again, whether you're turning over 1 million or 20 million, you can walk in and just go, these people just haven't got the basics. The electrical company I talked about, the reason we went in there was they said we don't have a value proposition. And I was like, how can you be a $40 million business without a value proposition or just a one pager that says why people should hire you? So those are the kind of things I always sort of go, let's go back to basics first and get those things right and consistent before we worry about anything else.
I remember, I can't actually remember who it was who first sort of challenged me on this question. When I sort of grew up in sales, and in sales, you sort of sales leadership, you're always thinking about, especially if you're not accountable for marketing, you're thinking about kind of lead volumes and conversion rates. How many leads have I got? What's the conversion rate? And therefore, how many people do I need to kind of produce a certain outcome? And how do I multiply that? And somebody said to me, I think we had it was like a 10% conversion rate or a 15% conversion, something like that. And they said, well, that's really interesting. What are we doing with the other 85% of people that say no? And I was like, oh, what do you mean? Well, I know what all the categories are. These ones with disconnected phone numbers, these ones not interested, these ones went to a competitor, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yeah, but that's the category of where they're at. But why? And how are we engaging them? What are we doing with that 85% of leads that we didn't convert for whatever reason? How much do we understand about that? And I thought, oh my God, it seems so simple. So to your point, it's like, well, do you need to be spending your time on actually getting more leads? Or have you actually got a whole bunch of opportunities that you're not even converting well because you haven't really thought about or understood or asked the questions of or understood the problems of why didn't those people engage with you? Because you've already paid for those or you've already generated that opportunity, but for some reason there wasn't a fit. And you're not going to be a fit for everybody, but there's probably a doubling of your business in the leads that you've already got. if you could close twice as many of them, you'd have a much bigger business with no additional marketing spend. So I think
and often just slight changes in those percentages make massive difference.
Huge, especially
if you've got a database. Your point, if you've got a database of 100 people and 85 of them said no, all you've got to do is find 2 or 3 more in there, and it can make a massive difference to your business.
Yeah, where's the survey or the conversation where you pick up the phone? And I always tried to make it a mandatory thing for all leaders in any business that I've run. They all have to call a customer a week. Like they all have to remain connected with the customer and ask them about their problems and what's going on and what their perspective is of us and competitors and what's happening in the industry and so on, because otherwise you lose touch of, you might have developed, to your point, you might have worked with an agency, developed a marketing strategy, you got all your positioning and your value proposition, and they're like, okay, good, we're set. Now we're just going to execute. It's like, yeah, but what if the needs of your customers change over the next 6 to 12 months and you've actually stopped talking to them because you're just so focused on execution, you forgot that your job is to solve problems for your customers. If you lose that connectivity, you really miss a lot of opportunities. Actually, I was listening to a podcast this morning and I heard a great example where someone had a piano tutoring business, and all of a sudden in this kind of recessionary low confidence environment, all the inquiries had dried up because, it's a discretionary item, getting piano lessons for my kid or whatever. And it might've been something that I just like to do. And she said, well, what if you've got all these people now that are really stressed? What about if that's actually their issue? What about repositioning the piano business as a place where you get to kind of get a break, to sort of relax, to get creative, to get a disconnect from your stresses and the worries of the world. And all of a sudden, their marketing, they started to get cut through again, just because the customer's problem had changed and they reconnected with the customer. They didn't change the offering, just how they positioned it. So what about good marketing strategy? What do you think? What are the sort of characteristics then you think of good marketing strategy?
I think probably the number one thing for me is simplicity. And we made this mistake early on, 2 years ago when we launched Cemoh. We kind of had all these categories of how we were going to describe the people that were working for us. And there was, I can't even remember what they were now, but they were strategists and achievers and beginners and stuff like that. We kind of with all these fancy. And after a while, we were just like, Christ, we've really overcomplicated this. They were like, what we found was people going, I just need someone to help me with my social media. I don't need you giving me all these kind of, superfluous kind of descriptions of who they are. Do you have someone who can help us post on social media? We're like, well, yes, we do. Here's someone, So simplicity of product, simplicity of message, simplicity of communication to people, just stripping back all this superfluous gumph that someone in a branding or a marketing agency has told you is going to be help you get cut through and help you look different to everybody and help you kind of create your own USP. Just look, people,
why do you think we end up there? Why do you think we end up in this kind of where we overcomplicate?
Because normally somebody's paid to overcomplicate this stuff. That's the problem, is that you call people in and they're, creatives in agencies, and they're being, you're paying $170 an hour for the pleasure of having these people go, well, let this, and all that, just come up with all these, you see it, and you see it from right at the very top, when you read these, trend reports from people like Gartner and who are some of the big, some of the big consulting companies that come up and show you, oh, well, this is the life cycle of I always love this kind of life cycle of an entrepreneur, or life cycle of innovation and stuff like this. And you just go, God, this is bollocks. It's just, this is not how it happens in the real world. It's somebody being paid huge amounts of money to come up with all this kind of theory and stuff like that. And innovation in my mind is, yes, there's a process behind innovation, but there's also, just wild left field shit that happens at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon that you suddenly go, oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Yeah.
So it's just too many people in there trying to complicate things, too many people internally as well, and a lot of businesses trying to justify their own salaries and trying to justify their own roles by creating more than the business actually needs.
Yeah.
So to me, a good leader, a good CEO kind of cuts through that and goes, what are we doing
What's
here?
cool? Yeah.
What's the core message? And it's so funny. I look at car adverts. Car adverts to me are a really good example of how we've kind of lost the point of any features in a car. Nobody talks about the features in a car advert anymore, like reverse cameras. Yeah, well, they've all got that. Pretty much every car has everything in it now. There's no point in sitting there going, oh, look at all these kind of, and now most car adverts they don't talk about how they go from 0 to 60 or anymore. They don't even talk about safety or economical, because all those things are a given now in every single new car that you should buy. So most car adverts are just, here's a picture of the car, do you like it or do you not like it? And
you want to look like the family all wearing white walking along the beach because they drive this car. If that's who you want to be, then that's the car to get.
So it's really hard now to define and distinguish car brands, and but for most businesses, it's just about going, just cut through everything, just simple messaging, and simple messaging coupled with good tactical execution. And I wrote down here that the classic phrase, consistency trumps creativity. Every single day of the week, if you are being consistent with your marketing, it will be so much better than you having these whiz bang creative ideas.
And I think even if you're even thinking about that in the context of, say, a content strategy, it's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that you got to be producing new stuff all the time. But then it's like, well, hang on a second. But that you're kind of almost assuming that everybody who you may have any kind of eyeballs or ears sort of attention of is seeing every message, digesting every message. So if you keep sending out all this new stuff, where's the reiteration of the stuff that might, you could unpack it probably 15 different ways for different audiences. Actually, it's the same piece of content being kind of reworked rather than having to come up with new stuff constantly. I think we can feel a bit of pressure sometimes to be constantly adding new things. And you see it in businesses that are going through those scaling stage of like 10 to 20 million, right? They start to take on marketing resources, they start to take on sales resources, and then all these people, of course, have great ideas, and they start throwing all these opportunities back to the founders going, yeah, we could do this and we could do this and we could do this. And all of a sudden, the thing that kind of got you to there, you start feeling like you've got to feed the beast a bit. So you then start adding new products, maybe you go after some new customer types, you start going to new industries, and all of a sudden you start to dilute the kind of core of the business. And rather than scaling the thing that's really core and is working, you end up having to dilute your attention and get a bit distracted from the main game, because you've got to learn about all these new customers, you've got to learn about their industry and learn about their problems. And it can really, they usually tend to keep growing to a certain stage and they just plateau out, where all of a sudden now you've got way too much stuff. You've probably got way too many marketing messages, too many products, too many services, too many customer types. Like, okay, and then you have to cull to get back to the core usually, and then you get the next wave of growth that comes after that. It's really interesting.
And it's interesting. We did it the other way around, because we went out with all these ideas and all these products and all these things. And then in the last 2 years, we've just kind of cut things out.
Yeah.
And now we sit there and go, what do? We find companies marketing people.
Yeah.
And you can have them for 3 months, you can have them for 6 months, you can have them permanent, whatever you want. We find you good marketing people. And that is the pure single message that we do.
Yeah.
And also we then, I also remember we had all these kind of customer types, and who are we trying to go after? And there's the danger, and I've had this with my team, and they go, oh, well, our typical customer is this, and I'm sort of looking at them going, look, 1 minute we've got a customer who's a single person startup and they make underpants. And the other side of things, we've got two ASX listed companies who are turning over $600 million each or whatever. And another company over here that's a $40 million electrical company. So how are you going to tell me that we have a particular customer type when we are dealing with all of these things, all of these kind of people successfully? And most marketing business people will turn around and say, well, let's just concentrate on the ones that are profitable for you. And I go, well, they're all profitable for us. They all make money. They're all easy to, they've all been working with us for a long time, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we boiled it down to not looking at the type of business that we were servicing and not worrying about their headcount or their turnover or their industry and all those. There's a few industries we don't touch, but we generally sit there and go, let's not worry about that. Let's worry about what their problem is.
Yeah.
Right. And that is the definition of our target market. And we have two. Number one, it's people that come to us and go, I need help with my marketing. Right. Those are our customers. They don't want to go to an agency. They don't want to employ somebody. They just need help.
Yeah.
And we can give them someone that can help them. Yeah. And the other customer is that I need somebody to do something specific in my marketing.
Right.
So they go, I need a copywriter for 3 months to just write a load of stuff, or I need a graphic designer for the next 6 months to do 2 days a week or something like that. Or those kind of, that is our definition of our customer base. People who ask those questions of us.
Nice. Yeah.
Right.
Love it.
We know that by asking us, they're self-aware that they have a problem, which is tick. They understand. And they're also self-aware that their problem they can't solve themselves. Tick. Right. Yeah. And that they want to come to someone who knows what they're talking about. Third tick. That's our customer.
Beautiful. And the nice thing about that is it allows you to really, sort of design the funnel, if you like, for those kind of problems very clearly, because you're really just focused on what the problem is and how they're languaging it. So what I love about what you just said is you're really in the mind of the customer in terms of the actual language they're going to use, which should be flowing through everything that you think about from then on in terms of that journey for that customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so simplicity, clearly number one. And I think I really resonate that, especially in this kind of size audience too. What else do you think about?
So I had simplicity, good tactical execution, consistency.
Yeah.
And probably the four, 5, and 6 that I'd written down were probably more tactical things, rather than sort of the sort of bigger picture ideas. And again, there's nothing that hasn't been said about marketing in the last 40, 50 years. But number one is to make advocates of your customers. If what you want is your customers out there talking about you to whoever they can be talking about. So how are you doing that? What are you doing to make them into your fans, so that word of mouth does grow? Because otherwise you're relying on the word of mouth being your service to that customer, right? Which they may love that service and they may talk about you, but what else can you do? Can you take them to lunch once a quarter? Can you go and play golf with them? And I know kind of the idea of going to play golf or whatever, or can you have a beer with them, or can you just sit down and have a chat with them, or can you introduce them to somebody else that might be useful to them, or can you help with your network, introduce your network to their network? All of those kind of things grow word of mouth, rather than relying on word of mouth happening because of the product or service that you're delivering. Turbocharge it and go, what can we do? And it comes back to that. Do I send them a 6-pack of beer, or do we send them some cupcakes, or whatever it might be? All these kind of crazy ideas and sort of fun ideas that you could have that that means that you're turbocharging that word of mouth.
Well, especially if you think about it, how many people have you raved about to somebody else where they might have done an excellent job, but they met your expectations. And so if that's what your service does, and it's great, but it meets their expectations, and okay, they might still give you a 5-star review, but that doesn't mean they're out there going, wow, like I had this interaction with Simon, or whoever this supplier is, and there's something that's actually been above and beyond, because that's the only stuff that you talk about, right? Like, or other than negative things, obviously. You don't talk about meeting expectations. That's really interesting.
So, and then the last two were events and partnerships, I think are categorically the most important thing for any other business. If there is a chance of getting yourself or your business in front of a room of 200, 300, 1,000 people, 10 people, 20 people, if there is an opportunity to do that, whether you're piggybacking on someone else's event or whether you're creating your own event, get yourself on a stage in front of people, because they will remember that, and that will become an educational experience for them. And allow them to walk away with saying, I saw Simon talk at this event, but God, I got so much out of it, because that will really resonate with them. And the key with it is, if you do it right, it's not going to cost you a lot of money.
No.
It's a good opportunity. And partnerships is the same thing, is to work, kind of fits in with that advocates and events, but work alongside people that are looking and trying to target the same customers as you. We do a lot of work with business coaches, or that sort of thing. They know that they're not going to get involved in the marketing, and we know we're not going to get involved in the, operations and HR and all that sort of stuff. So for us, it's about working with other people who are talking to the same customers as us, and linking back to us. So, that's, those are, there's lots of things that you can do for good marketing strategy, but those are the sort of ones that I just go, hey, just get yourself out there, get people talking about your business and your brand. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think the partnerships is often really overlooked. Like, who are the collaborators where you've got two where you clearly don't really cross swords, for want of a better word, into each other's paths, but actually you are not working with the same client. One of the ways sometimes to think about that is, if you were to be a fly on the wall and you could see the timeline of when a customer is using your service, what are the problems when they finish using your service do they then face next? Okay, so they've got this thing from you. What do they then do? And then who's the next person they actually need help from? Or who's the person they went to before you that's helping them? It might not be in that specific part of the journey, but it's potentially another part of the journey. Well, that's again someone who's going to be probably serving the same customer, probably helping them with an overall problem that's related, but not the same, not with the same service. And so
I'll tell you where you, very quickly, I'll tell you where you see that every single day, certainly in Australia, is if you go to a small shopping centre, so down where I might go to the doctors, in that little shopping centre, there's a doctor, there's a real estate agent, there is a pizza place, there's an ice cream place, there's a Thai restaurant, there's this little mini supermarket as well. That is the basic, that's partnerships working. They're all in the same place together, and they all know that if someone comes in to go to the baker's, they'll see all the other shops there, and they'll remember them, and they'll know that they're there. So if you think how you do that from a service-based business with a group of partners, so that when a customer comes in to meet one of you, they're also by default meeting all of you.
Yeah.
And that knock-on effect will be massive.
Yeah, I really like that. It's very interesting. And so what about some examples then of businesses that you think are getting it right?
This was a real challenge because you know, because it's very easy to be really critical of businesses out there, and
It
I
is,
was
isn't
like,
it?
I
We can
kind
get
of
on our
wanted
high
to,
horse.
yeah, look, I wanted to pick some that I like thought that they're doing it right because for various reasons. So,
Yeah,
and I'll whip through them because otherwise we could go down a rabbit hole here
of
for
course.
ages.
Yeah.
Number one of my personal favorite brands is Guzman and Gomez, the Mexican restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
I just think
GYG.
everything they do is absolutely spot on, especially the speed of the service, the quality of the food, the fit outs, the branding, the messaging. Just they've got it nailed. Yes, you've got people out there going, "No, it's not real Mexican," and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. It's like they're almost $1 billion business. So anyone who sits there and goes, "Hey, it's not real Mexican," he goes, "Screw you, they're doing a great job."
Yeah.
So that was one. And then my other big business that I think is consistently delivers a just a spot on brand experience is JB Hi-Fi. You know, and they've also been one that I've seen that's gradually evolved over the years. You know, they've gradually started taking on new products and different products and all those kind of things. They haven't got stuck to their guns like the Harvey Normans of this world, which is the same experience now than it was 20 years ago. But JB have kind of really latched onto trends. They understand what's happening in the marketplace, what people want, and they're delivering that, and they're servicing people, and they're just doing it really well. So those are my two big ones. I go, any business could learn from those. You know, even if you're a lawyer or an accountant, you could still learn from Guzman and Gomez and sit there and go,
yeah,
you know, what they're doing is just really efficient and smooth and clean messaging and all those kind of things. Then there's some smaller ones. I used an app the other week called Parkable, which basically they go and buy parking spaces around Australia, and then you buy them off them, and obviously that's how they make a margin and things like that. And I managed to get a parking space at the Gabba for one of the T20 matches in a little a church down around the corner from the Gabba, and cost me $10. Like, and most of the other parking spaces were minimum $50. There was one that was $120, so I paid $10. And just the service, the beauty of the app, how it worked. And then I had a query, and I was going, what's the chances of me getting a response from a help desk? But got a response in 10 minutes. And I was like, this is, you know, from an app that, you know, whether they can grow big enough and their margins are big enough, or whether they could be a sustainable business, I don't know. But I was just super impressed by the whole process and the whole support process as well. I've got a client called Salmon Plumbing. And as a plumbing business, I go, he's just got it so nailed. You know, he's got this little cartoon salmon as his branding. Everybody knows him. He runs salmon related joke adverts on radio. You know, it's classic dad jokes. You know, they're just brilliant. But when you go and meet his team members who've all got their own vans and they all go out and do work for him and things like that, you just go, this guy, he's got the branding right, but he's got the branding right to his staff as well. They love working there. They all feel empowered. They all seem to be, you know, really focused on what they're doing and the brand and all those kind of things. So he's made all of his made not just his customers, but he's made his staff their advocates. They are they're really, you know, really strong.
Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because you know, when you work with agencies who are helping you build some kind of a brand book, and they're talking about the tone of voice and all the rest, it's all great to spend your time with an agency, come up with something that looks beautiful and it's got great messaging and all the rest. But to your point, if you then hit the team, and the team just have a completely different style, the messaging's very different. Like, you've got kind of really refined, elegant kind of looking messaging, and then you get, you know, really rough people who are really rude to you or whatever, like that stuff just doesn't work. So it's like, how do you make it authentic, but make sure that it flows all the way through to the experience? And how do you get comfort that is going to be consistent? It doesn't need fanciness. It needs consistency, to your point. It kind of comes back to Yeah. What's
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
what's the language
Absolutely.
and how does it flow all the way through? Okay. I
Yeah.
like that.
And my last one with the people that did this fit out behind me, the again,
Mhm.
small local business, there, I think there's 6 or 7 there working there. Um, number one, it wasn't cheap,
Yeah.
right? And number two, there's a massive delay in terms of timeline of them getting stuff done because they're backed
Mm.
up, right? But just the quality of craftsmanship and every step of the way, I was like, even the people that sometimes when you get people to come and fit these things, you kind of spec this kind of rough chippy with, smoking a durry out the front and, making a mess of your house as they go in and out. But it was 2 young, maybe mid-20s, late 20s, a guy and a girl, just super efficient, super polite. You'd have mistaken them for, white collar professionals
Mm.
if they hadn't turned up in shorts, and just everything about the service from start to finish was great.
Mm.
And even to the point when, I think by the end of the job, I still owed them $1,000 or something like that. And I sort of
Yeah.
said to them, "Hey, look, it's going to be a couple of weeks for me to pay you." There was nobody kind of going, you need to pay us immediately and blah, blah. There was just polite, so that kind of all of the things, all the people
Mm.
I've sort of mentioned there, I think there's a common thread amongst them. It's really easy to buy from them,
Easy. Yeah.
you know and that's something that I think a lot of businesses forget, that they sort of go, they make it hard for people to buy from them. But
Mm.
when you're polite and when you're efficient, when you're consistent, and when you've got your staff as advocates, and when everything is set up properly and managed properly, it becomes so easy for customers to buy from you. And they then don't care how much, well, they don't care, but the cost then becomes a secondary problem for them.
Yeah.
They go, I would rather pay more and work with this company than pay less and work with that company over there.
It's a really interesting challenge, isn't it? When you're a founder, how do you get how do you get insight into the customer's journey so you can find those tension points and remove them, whether that's the style of an individual, whether it's an annoying process that you've got,
Mm,
whether it's a template that doesn't work, whether it's kind of clunky, disconnected text messages and emails, or whatever it is. Like I like watching those shows where the CEO becomes an employee for a week and they go undercover or whatever, and they kind of see the inside of the
yeah,
because as a CEO, you're constantly running into things where you're like, I can't believe we do it that way. Like that's just
yeah,
horrendous. But the further you get away from the front and the business, the bigger your business gets, the more you get disconnected from that stuff. But it's like you've got to find a way to ensure that you can go through every single element of that customer's journey, to your point, and make sure from the very first moment that they heard about you, every part of that experience, think of it as a series of post-it notes along a wall.
mm,
Every one of them, you need to be able to take a step back and go, okay, is the message, to your point, is the message really simple? Is it really clear? Are we easy to deal with? Is it sort of an enjoyable experience? Are there any wow factors built in? Because if you can put all those things together, then you've got a really
yeah,
nice
absolutely,
machine that continues to grow itself, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Really interesting. Actually, I had on the flip side of that, I saw a business that has a great model. I probably shouldn't name them. Um, It's an app. There's probably a few around, so maybe I can get around to not naming them. My son, who's 17, decided he wanted to buy a car, and I'm always trying to teach him about assets and liabilities and stuff, and good debts and bad debts. I said, well, why don't you get a car that you can actually put on a car sharing platform? So whilst you're not using it, it's actually making you money. Maybe you'll even make some money, or at least you'll kind of neutralize the expense. So it's not actually a cost center for you. It's at least neutral, if not a profit center. Anyway, bought this van, put it on this car sharing platform, and he's probably been making, I would say, 30 to 40% return a year, and he's got a car that he can use anytime he likes. So he's been absolutely loving it. The service, like the app, is great. The the problem that it's solving in the way that it solves it is excellent, but the service level and the support level is just so incredibly woeful. Like it would take you 3 weeks to resolve you'd get on a chat.
Yeah,
It would take somebody forever to get onto it. They can't answer the question. They handball it to somebody else. Oh, they'll call you tomorrow. They don't call you tomorrow. Then you wait another day. Then you send them an email. That takes 3 days to come back. And then you'd
yeah,
be like 3 or 4 weeks before you've got a resolution. It's like, you are making me hate you so much, even though you've got such a great product. The rest
yeah,
of the experience is not
yeah,
consistent. And we ended up moving away from that just because of the frustration with the service experience, which I'm sure the CEO would be. I sent him an email. I sent him a LinkedIn message. So I'm like, I don't know whether you know. If you do, hopefully you're doing something about it. If you don't, you're going to be shocked about how bad it is.
Yeah.
And they've actually had a sale and an exit and a great sort of financial outcome, but in spite of themselves, because they really solved the problem well, but not because the rest of the experience was easy, enjoyable. I told everybody I could about how bad it was because it was just such a mismatch.
Yeah.
So easy to get wrong too. Okay, so I guess then we're probably coming to the end of our time together today.
Yes,
but if you were gonna capture, 5 things that you think then that founders should really consider to improve the way they market themselves, what would your guidance be?
So look, these are going to be kind of repeating sort of what you and I have discussed, but I think it's a good opportunity to sum up here. And I actually had 6 scribbled down here. I think number 1 is simplicity of message. That absolutely, clear that you can be understood quickly as to what you do and how you do it. So that's number 1. Second thing is get face to face with people. Yes, there's digital, yes, there's content marketing, but content marketing where you're face to face someone is so powerful. Where you can stand up and educate people, it's a massive opportunity versus, just, spending money on clicks and things like that.
Yeah.
Number 3 would be what I kind of said there as well, is educate people. Your focus should be educating people in terms of, helping them understand. They've got a problem, so help them understand the solution rather than just present the solution to them. So it's a question of say, yes, we can help you with this, and this is how we're going to do it, or this is what we see in the marketplace, other people having problems and things like this, and this is where we can step in and support. So education is key. Number 4 would be personality. This is something I think is woefully overlooked by a lot of businesses. Is your business needs a personality, and a personality that's engaging. So that comes back to your brand. So you can do all these kind of fancy, what does my brand stand for, and blah, 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 and all that, mission statements and accountants, lawyers, tax agents, how do you inject personality into those kind of businesses? But you can absolutely do that. You've just got to be, there's a level of thought that you need to put into that to be able to do that. So making sure that there's a personality there. We talked about making your product easy to buy. I think that's, that to me is an absolute, the amount of, I've been dealing with a lot of solicitors lately, the amount of solicitors that sort of send you a PDF and say, can you print this out and sign it and send it back? And I'm just like,
it's like, really?
Have you guys never seen a fucking Panda doc and all those kind of things? And I go, that's not difficult to set up. Just put it into a, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And probably my last thing, which would be a good sort of sign off on today. I did a podcast myself for a guy who owned a business down in Melbourne, and he was turning over about $10 million, and he was kind of lamenting or celebrating, it was a bit hard to tell, the fact that he barely did any work anymore. He said, after COVID, we decentralized our office. We've now got 8 staff in Australia versus 30 staff in Australia. Everybody else is global now. And, he was very sort of not very polite about Australian staff, but that's another conversation completely. And I said to him, well, what's been the biggest change in the business? What's made the biggest change for you guys? And he said, KPIs. And I sort of, what do you mean? He said, everybody in the organization, irrespective of where they are, of job title, whatever, had very clear KPIs that they needed to achieve every month. And those were so clear, he said, that he didn't care, the business didn't really care how people achieve those KPIs, and they could achieve them all in the first month of the first week of the month and then take the rest of the month off. It was that kind of, he said, but because those KPIs were so clear and so defined for every single member of the team, he said, after that, it became responsibility, and it was very easy to measure people. It was very easy to kind of understand who the good performers were and understand how quickly it was to get rid of the poor performing people. But he said that had revolutionized their business, changed their business. And he said, lots of other businesses talk about KPIs and, all the staff having KPIs. He goes, but more often than not, those KPIs are very ambiguous. They're, easy to manipulate. They're, all those kind of things. He said they'd actually brought an outside company in to define all those for every single member of their staff. And I thought that to me is a huge opportunity for business. Look, it takes time, it takes effort, it's hard work, but the payoff will be massive.
I love that. And actually, quite often people, if you imagine, we talked before about kind of putting post-it notes along a wall, think about your customer journey. If you think about that from your team's side, it's like, what needs to be those KPIs at every single one of those stages, and then map it back to the roles. It's a really, start maybe with the customer, the way that you actually deliver revenue, deliver a service experience and all the rest. Think about those KPIs and then looking at mapping back to people. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much today, Simon. I really acknowledge the way that I think it's an amazing thing that you did to start this business in the middle of COVID. And I think I love the fact that you've gone from maybe complexity through to simplicity, and you're obviously trying to implement all these in your own business as well, which is vital. Thank you so much for your generosity of time and spirit. Where would you direct people to if they want to know more about Cemoh?
So Cemoh is cemoh.com. So you can find us there. Otherwise, the best, if you want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not hard to find. So, come and add me on LinkedIn and, have a chat there. That's probably the easiest way of doing it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Simon. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the show today with Simon Dell from Cemoh. Thank you so much. And before you go today, if you got value from today and you liked it because you actually love the opportunity when you're listening to podcasts to step back for a moment and kind of work on your business fundamentally, you're going to really love the ScaleUps Roadmap program that I'm going to be launching in the first half of next year, which is a cohort-based program where we're taking groups of founders through a process to develop their 3-year strategy and execution plan for their business to help them, enhance their growth rates, their valuation, and their exit options. So what we're doing is we're actually kind of tweaking and optimizing your business model as we go through the process of developing strategy. And so if you kind of relish an opportunity to take a step back and work on your business to make sure you get the most out of the next 3 years, then and therefore, don't waste time prioritizing the wrong things, hop over to scaleupsroadmap.com.au. You can leave your email there and we'll keep you abreast of what's going to come up in that program as we get ready to launch. That is it from me. Thank you so much, Simon. Really appreciate your time today. You've been listening to the ScaleUps Podcast. I'm Sean Steele and look forward to speaking to you again next week. Thanks again, Simon. G'day everyone, just a couple of quick things before you go. If you have questions that you'd love myself or an upcoming guest to tackle about challenges that you're facing in scaling your business, please just jump straight on the website, scaleupspodcast.com. You can record your message straight from your mobile by hitting the button on the right-hand side of the page, or you can just email them the old-fashioned way, questions@scaleupspodcast.com. And just a quick reminder, nothing we spoke about today constitutes financial or business advice. If you are considering making big decisions in your business, seek out a professional who can look at your situation in detail and make sure you're getting sound, personalised advice. Thanks for listening. Look forward to being back in your podcast feed next week.